History is nice. History is dank with Strider Wilson. Darkness from the cloud.
Friggin' what up, dude? Fired up, dude, for another ep, dude. But honestly, dude, not gonna lie right now, dude. A little bit unstoked, dude. Thought I would be very stoked right now, but I'm a little bit unstoked right now, dude. I went golfing. That got me pumped up. Kind of the first thing that I did outside of my Q-teen routine. Freaking hit the links with my dog, JT, and his bro, Chris. Well, what up, dudes? And I was going to invite my brother for the 4th, have a nice little foursome, but he decided it'd be a good idea to go raging with his bros in Palm Springs. And guess what, dude? He doesn't get the invite. You do that, dude, you got to pay a price. You know, partying during these times comes with consequences, dude, and you're not going to get the invite. You do something like that. He even asked me, he called me, dude. He's like, yo, dude, if you need guys need a 4th, let me know. I go, yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah, sure, dude. Oh, okay, yeah, tight, dude. If something comes up, I'll let you know. And he's finding out listening to this right now. So the emotional stakes are through the roof here. A little bit of a emotional fratricide, if you will, on the air, live. So, yeah, I was stoked to be out there in some nature, dude. Freaking saw some hawks, dude. Freaking JT saw a hawk just freaking scoop down with its talons and freaking nab up a freaking tiny squirrel. Sad. But guess what? It's nature, dude. It's nature. But you know what really made me freaking sad and bummed was old dudes on the G course not distancing, dude. I saw old dudes, their demographic is at freaking risk. And, you know, this episode we're recording in advance, so we'll see what happens when this comes out in a few weeks, probably 2 months' time. But like, freaking, these dudes are splitting, I'm talking 65 plus, dude. Splitting onion rings, dude. Double dipping in the ranch dressing. Well, by the way, I love ranch with onion rings. It's a good call. Not a good call to be splitting and double dipping with your boys during the Q-teen, dude. So, and honestly, dude, it got me not fired up. And I was like, dude, I'm out here. I've been doing my part, staying in with, you know, enjoying my freaking dank credenza gaming, you know, dude, hanging with my GF, dude, smooching, watching dank movies, dude. And, you know, wearing my mask. I'm wearing my mask, dude. And I'm not even, I love getting a dank tuna salad sando at the turn. I skipped it, dude. I skipped it. I didn't want to go in the clubhouse for, you know, my safety and the safety of others, dude. You know, was walking, didn't even get a G cart, dude. My freaking feet, dude, not feeling good, but it was nice to get some exercise, not gonna lie. But honestly, yeah, dude, so I took these steps and then I'm seeing these old dudes on the G course not caring, dude. Now, I'm not saying this is all old dudes, but I'm like, dude, just made me cynical, dude. I'm like, dude, the lack of discipline, you know? It's like, are we freaking, you know, we're servants to desire, dude? People just don't care. It's tough, dude. Give me a little bit of cynical outlook right now, dude. I'm like, just thinking about humanity as a whole, and maybe, you know, I'm extrapolating too much here, but I'm like, dude, you know, look, your doctor tells you not to smoke a cig. What do people do? They go and smoke a cig. They're going to do stuff that we, and we're all guilty of this, dude. We're going to do stuff. You know me, dude. I'm like, you know, I got to watch the ticker, dude, you know? I still got to have a piece of flank steak, dude, you know? And so it's just tough. And then how can I tell my fellow man, you got to do this because it's good for all of us, when we're not even doing stuff that we know is going to be good for us ourselves? Just a cynical outlook, dude. Just honestly, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to, I was bummed, dude. So then I'm just trying to get my stoke back up, you know, bumping out push-ups, freaking, I would be tanning my beehole, but I don't really have a safe space I can do that without, you know, scorching someone's retina by looking in my freaking brown, dude. So just, you know, thinking of other ways, been listening to some tunes, dude. I'll just sit in my car and just bump some freaking Pennywise or some Sublime, just chilling there. And then I knew I had a pod ep coming up, and I'm like, dude, you know what, man? Let's dig deep, dude. Right now, I'm just, you know, I'm worried about the future of all of us, you know, right now, dude. But then I want to look back to the past, you know. How do we learn about the future? We look back to the past, and I'm like, who were the freaking first people to get stoked? What were their methods? Can I freaking figure out a way to tap into those? Can I share those methods right now? And so, honestly, I'm calling this episode a bit of a Stoke quest, dude, you know? History of Stoke. So who were the first ones? And is it a mindset or are there actions? You know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Do I get stoked from stuff that's outside of my body and it creates stoke within, or do I have innate stoke within me that I somehow tap into and then put it out into the world, you know, create a positive externality? I don't know, dude. And, you know, just looking back, I was just curious. I'm like, who were the first people to get stoked? You know, I got to imagine, like, you know, the Olympics were probably very stoke inducing. You know, you got jack dudes out there, oiled up, throwing weight around, feeling good, cheering each other on. And, you know, the first written records of the Olympics in the ancient games were in freaking 776 BC. They probably happened before that, but the first written records was when a cook named Corybus, dude, won the only event. He won a 192 meter foot race called the Stade. And fun fact, dude, that's the origin of the modern word stadium, dude. So it's pretty sick. And I got to imagine that, dude. I got to imagine Corybus, dude, was stoked after winning that race. I mean, just goes back. I mean, honestly, you got to think, that's why Summer Olympics, even nowadays, Usain Bolt, dude, 100 meter race, dude, it's a sick race, dude. So just, I mean, it's the ultimate sign of just being the fastest dude on earth. That's freaking sick, dude. So that's got to be definitely stoke inducing, dude. By the way, just some facts for you guys, dude. First modern Olympics took place in 1896 in Athens. Little throwback. What up, dude? Featured 280 participants from 13 nations competing in 43 events, dude. And then in 1994, that's when they introduced the Winter Olympics, dude. And they've been going on, you know, every so often, 4 years summer, 4 years Olympics, dude. Boom, 2 year intervals. What up, dude? Got to imagine freaking, you know, the Polynesians, dude, surfing. Surfing's a stoke-inducing sport. So, you know, I'm tapping into something here. I'm tapping into some sport, and it's making me think, all right, it's an external thing that creates stoke within. So, you know, I looked up some Polynesian words here, dude. Freaking hia nalu, which I'm probably butchering, dude, so my bad, which means wave surfer or wave slider. I like the word wave slider. That's a sick, like, screen name or password, you know what I mean? Wave slider 69 would be a sick password for your, you know, you got to mix up the caps in there, you know? Be a sick password for your email, dude. That was first recorded by early European explorers. Some researchers freaking placed the first site of surfing in Tahiti, not in Hawaii, dude, in 1767 by this crew of this boat called the Dolphin, dude. Others placed the moment in the eyes of Joseph Banks, a crew member on James Cook's HMS Endeavour, dude. Freaking straight up cruising around, dude. This is cruising back to Hawaii. This is in 1779. You know, the freaking Lieutenant James King, dude, on this freaking Captain James Cook's, freaking tons of Jameses here, dude, ship, dude. In his diary, Cook says surfing was also described by early explorers in Samoa and Tonga. Later, many freaking landmark authors would go on to write about the ancient art, including Mark Twain and Jack London, dude. Pretty sick, dude. Jack, you know, short for James, dude. So, I mean, you know, there's some stoke going on in the Hawaiian Islands, dude. Got to imagine that, dude. They also say there might have been some early surfing going on in Peru, dude. More of like boat type stuff that could catch like swells out in the deeper ocean, dude. Go out and get some fishing, cruise out to some other freaking islands off the coast of freaking Peru, dude. So little, you know, just a little history of surfing there, dude. Brief, but what matters is dudes are getting stoked doing that, you know? Got to imagine, I don't know, dude. Aaron, what else do you think? Who do you think were the first people to get stoked, dude?
I don't know who the first are. I think you're probably right with some island folks.
Yep.
But I definitely know of our founding fathers. Ben Franklin is probably the most stoked, dude.
Ben Franklin's very stoked, dude. He created bifocals, dude.
Yeah, he was like a Renaissance man. He went to Paris and like partied for years.
He had a sick haircut that was like, his dome was, he kept it long in the back and then freaking just straight up.
The skullet?
Yep. The skullet. I mean, that's just the ultimate fire haircut. When I'm older, even if I'm not going bald, I'm rocking a skullet, dude. I think it's a good move. Dude, freaking B. Franklin just flying kites as an adult. You know, nowadays we see that and we're like, that dude's a kook. But he was out there being a scientist, dude, discovering stuff and being stoked flying a kite. It's a nice activity. So, yeah, I think you're onto something there, dude. 1700s, dude. I got to even think, dude, you know, early man, dude. I always throw it back to, you know, straight up 10,000 BC, you know, before the Egyptians, dude. Freaking, when you got freaking Homo erectus, dude, our freaking ancient ancestors, dude, you know, or early man, dude. What are they getting stoked on, dude? Probably just freaking coming up on some dank berries, dude, or freaking cruising out on a fig tree and being like, score, dude. We just scored right here and just housing those dank nutrients, dude. I mean, dude, honestly, if we want to go religious with it, dude, I mean, freaking Adam, dude, when his GF Eve showed up, dude, he was stoked. That's freaking the beginning of time, dude. That's Genesis right there. So, you know, Stoke exists. Is it something that's shared, dude? Is it something our fellow man gives us? I don't know, dude. I'm tapping into some psychological freaking, not psychological, but some psychology of Stoke here, dude. And I figured, you know, I am sort of, I would say, an expert on being chill, dude. I got good bro energy, you know, like when I'm at valet, like, I mean, you know, there's this dude, maybe I told the story before, but there's this dude, Christian, at valet, dude. I was training this dude like 8 hours all day. He's younger than me. He's probably 18, 19, dude, young kid, dude. I'm training him, dude. I'm telling him, look, dude, you got to, you know, back in SUVs, dude. This way, you got to be quick on your feet, slow in the seat, dude. Safety first, you know, but I mean, be efficient, dude. And, you know, don't take SUVs underground. You want to scrape the roof, dude, even though you think you got it, dude. Check your angles, dude. Don't trust backup cams. You know, we got to hang the keys here, dude. We do, you know, check the last 3 digits, dude, because we get a lot of cars during lunch rush. You know, tickets are color coordinated, dude. Here's long-term guests. Here's short-term guests here, dude. You know, make sure you bring a banana, dude. House that in the morning, dude. Don't want you cramping up in the afternoon, dude. You know, hydrate every hour, dude. And, you know, just telling them all these things, dude. And like, honestly, dude, if you add up all the time me and Christian took to get to know each other, like throughout the day, like of me being like, oh, what up, I'm Strider, dude, I got a GF. And Christian being like, oh, what up, dude, I'm from Vegas. Oh, sick, Vegas. And, you know, I love laying down parlays. Oh, sick, dude. Where are you going? Oh, Cal State, Fullerton. Oh, sick, dude. Nice. I'm from OC, dude. Sick, dude. And so just, you know, if you took all that amount of time we took to get to know each other in that 8-hour day, it's probably 1.5 minutes of the 8 hours. And this is going to sound kind of braggy, dude, but like at the end of that shift, me training him, he looks at me, dude, and he's just kind of like, yo, Strider, dude, I'm thinking boys trip. And so, I mean, just getting the invite for a boys trip out, you know, just meeting a dude one shift. I mean, I'd like, look, I don't have a 401k, dude. I do not have good health insurance. I have 0 dental insurance. You know, I need LASIK bad, but, you know, when bros are hanging with me, they want to keep that shit going, and that feels tight. So I guess in that sense, I'm kind of an expert on chilling and sort of being legitness, which is me patting myself on the back a little bit. So my bad for bragging right there. But, you know, when it comes to my quest of the history of Stoke here, I'm not an expert, dude. I want to figure stuff out. So I want to get an expert on the pod here, dude. I want to freaking reach out, dude, to this dude. Phil Draz is his name, dude. And he's a psychologist in Colorado who has worked in industrial, organizational psychology, psychometrics, and most recently, school psychology. So this dude's got degrees, dude. He's got degrees. We're going to call him up. I'm going to ask him, you know, from his perspective, what's going on with feeling stoked? When did we first get on the Stoke? And also, you know, it's a historical podcast. I want to keep it dank. I want to find out, you know, a little bit about the history of psychology. What's the difference between psychology and psychiatry, you know? Is one just a study of something? Is one an actual science? I don't know, dude. Let's find out, dude. So buckle up. Here we go. We're going to do a little Skype interview with Phil, dude. Calling him up, dude. Phil, what up, dude? What's going on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, dude. Looking good, dude.
Well,
I like that we're both rocking the backwards lids right now, dude. That's what's up.
I know. I was like, do I want to go with my big fro right now, or do I want to wear the lid? I might go back and forth depending on the sitch.
I love that, dude. Maybe if we get more serious, you know, you got to take the lid off. Let me know. Let the hair come out. You know, because that's
and I did bleach it a bit. Like I've been sunning it for the coral, so I kind of wanted to, you know, represent that aspect.
Legend. Good on you, dude. We were actually talking about hair, Aaron and I, about Benjamin Franklin's hair, how he's got the skullet, you know, that bald thing there, and then like the long hair in the back. That's an intellectual looking haircut, you know?
Yeah, you have to be very confident in yourself if you're going to rock that haircut.
Very true.
And I think he obviously did not lack in confidence.
No, dude was a Renaissance man. And he was an expert. And you, Phil, are an expert here. And I gave you a little introduction before we called you, but I feel like who better to let us know a little bit about yourself than the man himself. And, I'm sort of today just looking back on, a little bit of the history of Stoke. And then I feel like Stoke is a state of mind or a state of being. And so I figure let's get an expert on here, a psychologist, and you've had extensive studies. I think we spoke on the phone the other day. You've got 4 degrees, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I feel like I'm one of those jack of all trades, master of none. So I don't think I'm like technically a master, but I do have some masters along the way of, this journey that we call life. And so, I started out in like industrial organizational psychology. And then I picked up a quantitative psychology degree at the same time. And that's like where I did a lot of my psychometric stuff in terms of like the personality assessment stuff. And then I did some social psychology stuff as well. And which is really the only route for that is like academia, which would be cool. But now I'm a school psychologist. So I work with like kids, K through 6. And I'm doing like a lot of like running social skills groups, and then also some intervention work, but also like a lot of like cognitive assessment testing, social emotional assessment testing. So it's a really cool job because like you're kind of doing like a little bit of everything. But I do think like having that background in like social psych and, industrial organizational psych has kind of like informed my practice. And I'll probably always kind of bridge across the school psych world and like the organizational psych world. But yeah, psychology is like a super interesting, field. And I think like it's such a innovative field today. Like I know we talked a little bit about, the movement towards positive psychology. So instead of just focusing on like what's wrong with people, talking about like what are the people that are crushing it, what are they doing well, and how can like we get everybody up there to that level. And so
that's what I
yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a stigma out there about, people saying, oh, so much of psychology we're studying what's wrong with people. We study depression, and that is very important to do that. And then, you probably have more insight on this, but I feel like maybe it feels like a newer phenomenon of like the study of happiness, the psychology of, maybe being stoked. I don't think that's the clinical term, in your field, but I mean,
I think it could
happiness
be
is
like
a part
the near
of Stoke,
future. I swear to God, because it's like it resonates with so many people in terms of like what we're trying to accomplish is like maximize our Stoke levels. And like me and my sister, we listen to the Going Deep pod, and like she's constantly talking about like what's amping her Stoke, and it's like brought me closer to the people in my life that do actively work towards that, which has been fun.
Yeah, so you got to even put in work. Sometimes you think, oh, dude, I'm just stoked, I'm chilling, I'm hanging out, I'm partying, I'm raging, and don't get me wrong, that's part of it, that's true. But also, we got to work on ourselves. We got to maybe find those things that are a little bit negative, and maybe we can be more stoked at the end of the day. So
yeah, and I think like psychology's gotten much more scientific. So I feel like there's kind of 2 stigmas in psychology. One being, you're right, things tend to focus on the negative, but then also I think like Freud, sent us back a little bit in that there were a lot of people with like really wacky ideas there for a while, and now things have kind of said, all right, what can we like prove? How can we use science, and like how can we connect it to like biology? So psychology's moving very much towards like neuroscience and that sort of stuff. So it's been like a really, I don't know, I think that it's only going to get more interesting, and like but yeah, one of the things that I'm like most interested in is just like the development of personality. So like where does like pretty much all personality research is focused on adults, because that's the population that we're easy to do research on. Working with kids, like I want to look at like how is the personality formed, like what personality traits form early, what ones form late. There's also this whole like debate about, are personality traits malleable? So like if you wanted to increase like your extroversion, is that something that you can actively work on, or by definition is personality like those traits that are not malleable? Because that's the definitions that's been used a lot as well.
So you're saying maybe perhaps some people have more of a predisposition of being stoked or being fired up by something. So based on your
Yeah.
personality, it could be, and everyone has, I believe, and I like to believe, you know, maybe it's a benevolent thought or wishful thinking, like everyone can get stoked, and we can get stoked on different things. Some people got a little Schadenfreude, they get stoked on the, you know, when others are failing, that's unchill. But it's like,
Right.
maybe it's, you know, it sounds like maybe we're, because I asked this question earlier, is stoke something that's within all of us, or is it just based on external things that create it? You know what I mean? Or maybe it's some balance of both. Like, you know,
Yeah.
what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, if I go surfing, I'm stoked. Or is there something built within me that tells me I got to go ride that wave, and that's going to be, you know, very stoke inducing? And so maybe, I don't know. It sounds like,
Dude, I think you're spot on. I think it's like cyclical. And I also think, you know, like science has kind of shown it's like half nature and half nurture in terms of like who we are. And so, you know, I think some of us, our genes, like our ancestors were super amped up and like super stoked. And that probably contributed to better genes. And then other people, you know, are coming in, maybe their ancestors weren't as stoked. And so they're kind of like starting from square one. But I'm definitely of the belief that like, if you believe it, you can achieve it. You know, like we talked a little bit about like Cartesian logic in terms of like determinism. So, you know, how much of your life do you think you have control over? And like some people that are deterministic think everything's already written, you know, we have no control over, you know, if it's almost like it's out of my hands. And like that gives a lot of people, you know, some comfort because they don't have to worry about it. But then other people are like, no, like anything I want in my life, I can accomplish. And like we call that agency as well. So like they have like high agency. And like that's kind of where I am. It's like if you want something bad enough, you can get it. And I don't know. I think it's a healthier way to live than just kind of saying, if it happens, it happens. So
yeah, I agree with that. And you know, it's tough thing to do too. You know, a lot of people, you know, there's socioeconomic pressure, you know, class and, you know, race and gender that play into things that can, you know, that forces that be, and systemic circumstances and situations that are going to naturally, you know, I think you put in the little document that we have of like needs that need to be met. And like when, you know, like, okay, nutrition and health and whatever, and like all these base needs. And then, I mean, what level are we dealing with here when we're talking about like psychology? And I mean, it plays in with anything.
The perfect framework to like think about this a little bit. So that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And like I've been talking to people in town, I swear to God, like it seems to come up like every other night right now because people are just talking about priorities, I think, right now in like these crazy times. Yeah. But basically what Maslow says is like, you know, it's going to be hard for you to like achieve maximum stokeness if you are struggling from day to day to like just figure out how to put food on the table or something. So like his levels, like he started at food and water. Like obviously we need food.
For sure.
His hierarchy of needs. So this is from like his 1943 book. I think it was on motivation. And he basically said like, if we don't have some lower needs met, then it's really, really, really hard for us to meet like our higher needs or get motivated for to self-actualize. So like we're first motivated for our physical needs, like food, water, shelter, I guess is under there. Next is our safety needs. So personal security, resources, health. Next is love and belonging. So friendship, intimacy, family, just some sort of sense of connection. And next would be what he called esteem. So respect, status, recognition, freedom falls under there as well. And then self-actualization, is this like desire to become the most that you can be, or just being the most that you can be. But I think even if you're in that desire state, you're halfway there, right? Like you're already on the path. You got the momentum going.
You're cruising. A lot of people in Venice, I see in Venice Beach, you know, you cruise outside Whole Foods. I feel like it's a community of competitive self-actualization, if you will. Maybe you've seen this, where it's like everyone's got to say, nah, dude, I got the best thing going on. Look how jacked and tan I am. Trust me, my way is the only way. And I'm sure there's even people hustling and, you know, selling books. Like, what's your take on that? I sort of want to dive into maybe.
I've gotten more competitive like in the last few years, interestingly. Like I used to think I was cool by saying I'm not competitive or like I don't care, you know, I'm just about like the the joy of it. But I think you just have more fun when like there's more on the line. My dad is like super competitive, and like we have a tradition where every time we get together we play darts. Like it's been going for like 10 years. It's a pretty solid tradition.
Nice.
But like the more we put on those games, the more fun we're gonna have when we're together and stuff.
Stakes.
And I think about like the Spartans, you know, and stuff like that. Like there is, I think competition and like self-actualization is a very good road to follow if you want to. And plus like you're getting that social connection in too. It's not, you know, like, I don't know. I think there's nothing wrong. I can't imagine unless you take it too seriously or someone else takes it too seriously to the point where it's like ruining your relationship because like someone's taking it too seriously.
Or if someone tries to shame you over, it's like, look, dude, I'm not where you're at yet. Just give me my time. I'll get there, dude. Sorry, my 6-pack is, you know, a dippa in the fridge. It's not on my belly right now. Like, I'll get there, dude. I'm chilling.
Yeah,
Everyone's got their own pace.
Only if all of those things are taken care of can we self-actualize, was the term he used, which is basically like becoming our best selves, or like, and I think that's very much tied to like being maximally stoked is being your best self, right? Like that's when I'm most stoked, is when I feel like I'm like living up to the expectations I put for myself and then like others put for me, is like I'm doing a good job out here, you know?
I agree.
So to me, that's like stokedness.
But then here's the thing. Here's what I was talking about earlier, Phil. I saw these old dudes posting up who are, you know, in danger of, you know, COVID and stuff. They're in the demographic. They're at the G course in the clubhouse, hole 19, splitting onion rings, dipping it in the ranch, dude, licking their fingers, dude, double dipping, dude. And then, you know, maybe this gets, because it's almost like if you give someone a gift, then you can't just expect a gift in return. Like, not every day is Christmas. You know, if it's Christmas, I might expect a gift in return. But it's like, you know, you're putting out this positivity in the world, and then your fellow man's not giving it back. I mean...
Yeah. Well, like, there's a debate about altruism. So, like, the idea of altruism is basically... And some people say that it doesn't exist. So altruism is like giving fully with zero expectation of like getting anything in return. And some like psychologists say altruism doesn't exist. Like at the end of the day, we always are doing it for some ulterior motives, or like one of the classic examples is like if you see someone on the street and they're asking for change, you know, and you give them change. Are you giving them change because you care about them, or are you giving them change because it's going to like reduce your anxiety about the situation? And you're going to be able to say to yourself, oh, I'm such a good person, you know, that I did that. And so I don't know. I mean, I think
put it on Instagram.
If you're in a really good space, then you're more inclined to just be more altruistic and like care less about getting it back in return. But I think, you know, like there's ups and downs. And I feel like we all change. And so like those dudes at the clubhouse, you know, I could see them being in either headspace. Like they could truly be like, I love my bros and I just want to give them some onion rings and like I don't care what I get, you know, back. Or they could be, you know, like maybe they got there for a reason because they know these little things are going to increase, you know, their chances of getting something back in return in life. Either way, I think it's not a bad quality.
That's a fire outlook. And it's so tough, and you know, I'm guilty of this too. You see someone acting a certain way or sharing a certain opinion, you're like, and so many times I think many of us are guilty of like pigeonholing someone. I'm sort of pigeonholing those old dudes. I'm like, that's how these dudes always are. Maybe that was their first day out. I don't know. You know, it was my first day out, so I'm probably thinking that, and you know, I'm thinking I see those dudes there. They kind of look like regulars. I'm like, this is what they're doing every weekend. It's wrong, but I'm like, dude, maybe I got to. That's like I can control my own headspace and put forth some dankness, and I think that's going to be a fire.
There's this Buddhism idea. I know, like we were talking about, like, you know, Eastern thoughts too, because I think we should get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, there's this idea in Buddhism that you have been every person before in like a previous life. So like, if someone, you know, cuts you off in traffic or something, you're like, you know, screw that guy. You know, in a previous life, you've been that person. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those ideas in terms of. And I know we talked about like empathy, but really that's all psychology is it comes down to empathy and like, you know, how do we be more empathetic towards others? How do we teach people to be more empathetic towards each other? But yeah, I mean, like you just got to put yourself in their shoes. You know, it's one of those phrases that still is like just as applicable today as like, you know, when we're growing up as kids.
So true. And I think, when do we lose that as adults? When does that leave? You know, these things we learn in like kindergarten that just are so simple, but so powerful. And I got fired
That's
up.
what I like for kids, dude. Like I was working in a pretty decent organization, you know, it was kind of had like a Google vibe, and I left and I just wanted to work in schools because one, that's like where the assessment space, you know, is so much better. It's like the adult industrial organizational psych world is a little wild west right now, where there's some really high quality like assessments and stuff, but then there's also like a lot of more junk. Whereas like in the schools, I mean, it's pretty high stakes testing and that sort of stuff. But then it's also just fun. Like, I feel like I leave every day with a smile on my face because something funny happened. And like, as long as you can find something funny in your day, then it's going to improve like the quality of your life, I think.
Yeah. That outlook, latch onto that positive. And you know, I think I'm going to latch onto that, Buddhist thought that you had there, that we've been, or no, is it Taoist or Buddhist? The idea that we've been everyone at some point in our life.
I think it's Buddhism, because like I took this Tibetan Buddhism class in college and I heard it there, so that's my guess.
That fires me up. And what I hear about, it fires me up mainly because I think maybe in a past life, and Phil, forgive me for saying this, but it's just sort of my truth. Maybe I was a dude who had a Joe Morisi size hog in a past life, and then
congratulations,
you know, right now I'm just sort of working with what I've got. So that's something that can fire me up, you know, help me get my 8 at night. I love hearing that.
Dude, and like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like I would say use that so that in your next life, if you do have like a giant hog again, then you're gonna remember. It's like I'm watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they keep talking about like the previous avatars and stuff. Like you got to use that knowledge from the past lives to like inform your present life. And then ultimately you need to achieve nirvana and go into the Buddhahood, which is really what it's all about, is like escaping this, you know, cycle of samsara, at least from like the Eastern Buddhist perspective.
Getting rid of you know, no longer being servants to desire, getting rid of all of those. We've experienced all of these things. I love that.
Yeah.
Phil, I want to go into a little bit about, I want to talk to you about, and you know, we mentioned this too, and I love that we're going into some Eastern stuff, but so much of what we're exposed to here educationally in the United States is obviously through a Western lens. You know, it's Greek culture, it's Hellenistic stuff. And so I think maybe that's the avenue we're taking. I just want to get a little, you know, hard history on some psychology and where it begins, and maybe it's Greece, maybe it's before that. So what do you have on that? I mean, where do you see it starting as far as we know psychology today?
So psychology like basically grew out of philosophy. I mean, everything kind of, you know, psychology is basically trying to apply philosophical, you know, ideas, but through like a scientific lens. But before we like learn the scientific method and stuff, people just had like really sick ideas, and they were like, imagine this or imagine that. And like, that's one thing I love most about like the way Plato writes his like allegories. Him and Aristotle would just go like back and forth, and they'd be like, you know, whoa, imagine this idea or imagine this idea. And like, when I think about my best conversations with like my bros, like in college and stuff, it was always like sitting on the porch, you know, after the bars, you know, and just like just throwing whatever out there, knowing that like there wasn't going to be any judgment, you know, from your bros. And I don't know, I think that's what a lot of these podcasts are doing today, is like, you know, it's kind of a no judgment zone. Like, just, you know, let's get these ideas out there to people so that they can like percolate on it and like have ideas of their own.
I love that. Some of them good, some of them bad. You know, because when you are posting up with your bros, having those honest conversations, you know, one of your bros is inevitably going to invite his cousin for one of those sessions. He's going to be doing a little too much blow, and he's going to be thinking, oh, dude, I've got the best business idea. Here it is, dude. Here it is. We rent out a warehouse. I DJ. This is the cousin talk. I DJ. Dude, we charge people to get in. How sick is that?
Yeah.
Dude, we do it on New Year's. And so you're just like, so your business idea is just throwing a party on New Year's? You're like, all right, dude. Whose cousin is this? All right.
But it takes a village, I guess, like in a way we need, you know, those cousins.
Yep.
But maybe not. Maybe we don't need them like coming up hyped on blow, I guess.
True. Less blow when getting philosophical. Maybe a little bit of nugs, maybe a nice dippa. Or maybe a nice experience. I love getting philosophical with my boys off-roading. You know, we just hit some fat air. We're pushing it to the limit. Then we just pull over to the side. crush our breakfast
getting that
burritos.
heart rate up, getting that like dopamine, pumping. That's always like number one, I guess.
I love that. Sorry to get sidetracked there. So
no, for sure.
We were
But
talking
yeah, I mean,
about
like, I would say one of the first things that ever interested me in psychology was Plato's Allegory, the Cave.
Yeah.
And I was reading more about it today, and like, I feel like it should be called Aristotle's Allegory of the Cave, because he's really the one that like came up with it, and Plato just kind of wrote about it. But anyway, it's like, so Plato was basically like Aristotle's like Padawan, and whereas Aristotle's like the Jedi, and Plato has a cousin, I think his name's Glaucon. I'm probably not saying it right, but who knows how it
that
was
sounds
said.
like the DJ fest that the cousin was trying to come up with. It's like, dude, it's gonna be called GlowCon on New Year's. Let's go.
GlowCon. Dude, that sounds like a sick festival.
Yeah, dude.
We should throw a festival called GlowCon, but just spell it like the class. I think it's GLAUCON.
Yeah,
Sweet.
that's 100% a festival, dude. Are you
Just
kidding
talk
me?
about Plato.
Yeah, rent out a convention center in Vegas. Let's go.
Yeah, for sure. I lived in Vegas last year, so I have some connects.
Dude, honestly,
There you
if I had blow right now, dude, we'd be hatching up this business idea. All right, so my bad, dude. So you got GlowCon, dude. It's
So here's
Aristotle's
what
Allegory.
Plato and Aristotle said. So like Aristotle, says to Plato, like, imagine if like there were all these like people that grew up in this cave like since childhood, and they were chained down in this cave, and like even their heads and their arms, like they couldn't move their body at all, and they only stared at this like cave wall. And then imagine like there's these people that are almost like puppeteers holding up little human/animal like little things in front of this fire in the cave, and those are casting shadows onto the wall that all these people that are chained down are looking at. So to these people that are chained down, that's their entire reality, right? Like they don't know anything else. And so he says like that's kind of how society's built. And then imagine if like basically it's so related to The Matrix. Like if you're into The Matrix or The Truman Show, kind of have like those in your mind.
Yep.
But basically, like imagine if someone's able to like break free those chains and look behind them and like see like, whoa, everything I thought that was my reality is actually just like people pulling the strings, And then he goes, you'd be so blinded too by the fire that you wouldn't know exactly what you're seeing. So like all these voices and like visions and stuff are like what people throughout history have seen in like terms of visions and like all that magical stuff. And then he goes, imagine like if you were able to make it out of the cave and like be in the light of day for like the first time. And he talks about how like that's why all of our major religions and everything talk about stepping into the light and how you're in like a new world in a way. And then he goes like, it'd take you a while to like orient yourself to that new light. Like at first you wouldn't even be able to see it, but then you would. And then he goes, you'd want to go back into the cave and tell your bros, like everything you think as a reality is actually just like shadows being cast on a wall. And he goes, how crazy would you sound to like your bros? You'd sound like you were schizophrenic or something, because there's like, no evidence of it or anything.
Yeah.
But that's actually, so that the first time I heard that, I was probably like in my early teens and like was watching The Matrix and Truman Show, and like everything was just kind of coming together at once. And so that kind of motivated me just like think about thinking. Like, that's another way psychology and, it's thinking about thinking. That's what metacognition
You're
is
aware
called.
of your thoughts.
Just being aware and like, this whole idea of stepping into like a lot of throughout history, like the light has been associated with knowledge too. And so that like how those kind of go together. I don't know. Did you have any more thoughts on that?
I mean, I love that. I like to imagine, Ed Harris is definitely the dude, with the shadows, dude, casting it on my cave. And I think, I was thinking about that allegory. I was like, oh, it has so much to do with vision. But then, you already just brought up, because a lot of it's like, how do we observe as people? Like, I remember there was like something with this allegory or an offshoot of it of like, we take in, when in life did we learn, like maybe it was more modern science, but like for so much we thought we would see out from our eyes, but really it's light coming into our eyes. So it's this external world influencing our inner being. And so it's kind of, moving away from the Plato allegory, which the big takeaway from that for me is like being aware of our thoughts, being in our domes, doing comedy. You think like it's so much about, you self-awareness. If you don't have self-awareness, I don't know how you're going to do comedy unless like that's your character and you lean into it. But then are you aware you're doing that? I don't know. So it's I think it's like a gift we have, or I don't know how it happened. Maybe it was like, we ended up getting access to fire and nutrients and our brains grew. Earlier today, we mentioned that like Graham Hancock theory of like,
stoned ape, man.
Yeah, they're
like these psychoactive, like mushrooms or DMT or who knows, but probably like mushroom seems to be the best candidate, but that they could have like jump started our evolution in terms of like our cognitive abilities, because we're getting a new perspective, like our vision's a little more enhanced, so we can like, we can hunt a little better, or, I don't know, empathy, in some of these things. So who knows? But I think it's just like, it's exciting that we're living in a time where there's not just like one very strict way of viewing history, and now we're taking in, I don't know, the internet's a beautiful thing. And like, there's so many ideas out there, and it's going to be interesting to see like how academia handles that, because I think less and less people are going to have to like go to a physical college to like, I think everything's just going to be online again. So we'll see.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, it's been sick. I've taken some online courses. They've been fun, dude. I mean, even this right here, talking with you, I'm like, dude, it's freaking firing up my dome, getting new thoughts. I'm loving it. What do you think about the, I mean, we know like all of these, maybe we can touch on them briefly, of like these Western, I believe they are, maybe you can correct me, of like, you got Epicureanism, skepticism, cynicism. I talked a little bit about cynicism earlier, Stoicism. I mean, are these like your big four branches that things,
Yeah, I'd say that's more like philosophy than psychology, but it's everything in psychology has roots in philosophy. So like the more you know about philosophy, the better you're going to be able to, I don't know, just work as a psychologist, I think. But I do think, of those four, one that I definitely want to like touch on was like Epicureanism.
Yep.
Because this was partly this idea of like, how much of life should we dedicate to, being almost perfect, and like, or how much should we just have the best time we possibly can and enjoy our time on earth?
Dionysus,
but Nietzsche, like Friedrich Nietzsche, and I never know whether to say like Nietzsche or Nietzsche, but he had this idea, and I'm going to tie this to Stoke in a second.
Love it.
But like kind of have these two sides of us. So whereas like Freud said we had these three sides, like ego, superego, and id, Freud said, no, we have two sides of us. We got our Apollonian side, which is like our drive for purity. Like think about like those Greek statues, like
small
that
dogs,
are perfectly chiseled and like just perfect in every way. If you ever watched like Battlestar Galactica, like the character Apollo kind of like has that sense to him.
Yep.
And then like our other side's like our Dionysian side, which comes from like the god of Dionysus,
fire,
the god of like wine and pleasure and nature. And he said that like these two parts of us, are just our two sides of human nature, and like one's not correct, more correct over the other. It's just like acknowledging these different sides of us. But then that. Like the other point that Nietzsche made, which I think is like really, really cool, is this idea of the Ubermensch. So the Ubermensch is like what humanity, if we continue to evolve to be our best selves, then we're going to become like a species that is unlike humans, almost just like we are unlike chimpanzees. And this species is going to be called like the Ubermensch. And it's like this ideal superior man. Maybe that's when we start to look like aliens and like lose our mouths and like communicate telepathically.
Laird Hamilton,
but
dude.
In
Laird
terms
Hamilton.
of like being like super stoked, I think like you can only become like an Ubermensch if you're like really, your stoke levels are like very maxed out, probably.
I think Chad's almost an Ubermensch, dude. He's getting there, dude. He's getting close.
He's
Laird
definitely
Hamilton,
like an Apollonian creature.
Yeah, he is for sure Apollonian, dude. See, this is what I love. And this helps me dissect my own frustrations, and and I think it ties back into the empathy of like thinking of my fellow man. I'm not so much with when you're talking about psychology or psychiatry, you think, oh, we're just studying ourselves. But if I can think of course, we got to do work on ourselves, but then look at my fellow man, like these old dudes at the G course on hole 19. Maybe they were just having a Dionysian moment, and that's fine.
Yeah, sure. That's a good way to put it. I like that a lot.
And if they're keeping it to themselves, that's chill.
We tend to think of people as always being the same across situations. And like of course they're going to vary widely across situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That fires me up. That fires me up. Let's go to a little bit. We tapped into a little bit of Buddhism, and I did bring up Taoism. What's the distinction there? You know, I still even don't have these things clear in my dome. I'm like,
I mean, and I'm no expert by any means, but like my understanding, like both at the end of the day are really about balance. I think that's like one of the biggest differences between just like the way the Western world lives compared to the Eastern is, you know, Eastern religions and like Confucianism as well and stuff, balance is very important. So like yin and yang, you know, like, but with Taoism, you know, that's basically the middle path. So if you go too much this way or too much that way, it's really about like just staying the middle path and honestly chilling out a little bit. Cause I think some people get so worked up about the idea, like I'm not on the most spiritual path or something. And it's like, you are, if you just like relax and appreciate it, you know, instead of feeling like you need to be doing more all the time, you know.
Totally.
It's like chill.
People
and then
like
Buddhism is super interesting. Like it's so unlike Western thought in terms of, but it's basically like you have these 6 realms of existence, and like if you accumulate more good karma, so like if you accumulate you know, if you do good deeds, then you'll be born like in the next life. Let's say you're a human right now, like you'd be born in the next life as a demigod, so just like more powerful. And then if you accumulate more good karma, you'd be born as like a god. But if at that point you're so blissed out of your mind that you can't like accumulate any more good karma. It's like almost like having like just an orgasm all the time, you know, where it's like, it's pretty epic, you know.
That's tight.
But it's so hard to do like good deeds when you're in that state. So then you come back down, and then like if you know, are not accumulating much good karma, then you'd become like an animal below human, and then like a hungry ghost. I feel like I'm forgetting one, or maybe there's 5 realms, but I know these are realms.
Okay.
And what's cool is that the Buddha like achieved nirvana. So like he escaped this cycle of being reborn in the human state. So like we're actually, even though gods appear to be more powerful, like we're almost more powerful because we are well balanced. And he was just like sitting under a tree, like eating a bowl of rice, and he just like achieved nirvana and like went into the Buddhahood. And so like that's kind of what the goal of Buddhism is like to be like the Buddha so that you can achieve nirvana, I guess. Does that make sense?
Follow his path, and then you can freaking escape,
join the other
escape
Stoked
desire and like nirvana, I guess, is the ultimate amount of Stoke. Buddhism is a great jumping off point. I mean, you know, with the caste system and stuff, I've been reading this book Sapiens and everything, and talks about like humans with their imagined realities, and we need these things to for culture, for societies to function properly, you know. And one way is you know, distinctions are made through, you know, a caste. And you know, these imagined realities are augmented by religious things, you know, all of these imagined myths and stuff, and people freaking, you know, having to be more pious. Like, you know, there's the Christian ones of like, you know, and why do good? And I guess the cynic would say, oh, it's only so that, you know, the dollar can go around and everybody can get along. But I think, you know, within each, whether you have an Eastern approach or a Western approach, you can be stoked in your own society and, you know, sort of get out of that cave, I guess you could say, and be like, well, I'm just trying to get as close to being altruistic as possible for myself and fellow man within any system.
And I think like you can feel it, you know. I think like it resonates with people when you know that they are truly just doing their best in life and like trying to help others as much as possible and stuff. And like, you know, it comes across. It's weird how like you can, you know, get to feel like you know a stranger so well, even though you've never met him in person, just like from the way they live their lives and like their conversation and like even their voice inflections and stuff. And I don't know, it's like we're living in kind of like a really awesome time in terms of like self-discovery, also like social dynamics, you know, like some people get psychology and sociology confused. And so sociology is like basically looking at humans together as a group instead of at the individual level. It's like fascinating stuff.
I always want to branch out to the sociology, but it starts from within, dude. That freaking fires me up. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on today in positive psychology. I mean, we've talked about this. You've got Martin Seligman. You've got you sent me that dank video of Shawn Achor, the TEDx talk that he did. That fired me up.
Dude, that video, I've I've been in school a few times and stuff, and it shocks me. Although now it doesn't shock me, like how much that Shawn Achor video comes up. And I think so to the listeners out there, the Stokers, it's called The Happiness Advantage. And this guy, Shawn Achor, it's one of the funniest TED Talks I've ever watched. And he's just so relaxed and confident with himself. But basically, he's explaining this idea of instead of he's really kind of spearheading this whole effort to use science to say, what are the people that are crushing it out there doing right? And instead of only teaching to the average, he uses this graph of this outlier, for those that know what an outlier is. By the way, have you read Malcolm Gladwell's Outlier, his book?
I just know of it. I just know of the 10,000 hour theory and everything. And I really like Malcolm Gladwell. I've seen him on Rogan and stuff.
I really want to, I haven't read it yet, but I'm I need to go do that as soon as we're done talking. But so instead of getting rid of that outlier, which is what we literally do in a lot of, psychological research studies and stuff, is you get rid of the outliers sometimes. He's like, no, that's the most interesting thing going on. Yeah. And what is that person doing over there? And, is that working for them? And if so, how do we get everyone there and take the whole normal curve kind of over, if that makes sense. So
that was an interesting thought of so much of education in our country is based on, it's geared toward the average, everything's on a bell curve, everything. And part of that's good because at least, at a university level, when you grade on a curve, everyone's stoked on it because you can all pass. But it's the people in the 98th percentile are the ones who are going to get recruited by big companies and go on and maybe change the world. The rest of it's we're doing good. It's, an educated society is a better society. People are going to be more empathetic, I think, with an ability to critically think. But it's I don't know. I guess maybe they do it at better levels. But he just was are we creating a society of mediocrity? I'm I don't know. I think there's advanced classes and stuff. I think it's okay that we do that. But what do you think? Do you think that?
Yeah, I think I love the relationship between positive psychology and personality, which is I think the last thing we'll probably get to.
Yep.
But really there are personality traits. So in specific job roles, so let's say you're a sales representative or something, your extroversion or your confidence, those things might be better predictors of your success than your cognitive abilities, right? So your IQ. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're finding in a lot of different areas is what we call non-cognitive traits. And some hot ones right now, grit, resilience, engagement, things that when times get rough, now, a lot of what I'm doing is trying to figure out how do we increase resilience and grit, in my kids that I work with and stuff. Love so that when things don't go the way that we want them to go, you're still able to weather the storm. And a lot of that comes down to protective factors. So just having people in your life that you can lean on. Also, health is a huge one. So if you're taking care of your body, then you're going to be set up so much better if you get COVID or something, right? And your vitamin D levels are high. So we can apply that same idea to psychology, and just this is related to both personality and positive psychology things. What are these non-cognitive traits and how do we increase them when they're advantageous for us?
I love that. Football practice, dude. Paintball. Getting out there, a little competition. Yeah, I love it. You gotta have that balance. You gotta balance the Apollonian, the Dionysian, the physical, the mental. It's maybe the Greeks had everything, a little bit of everything in moderation. It's gonna be all right, And,
everything in moderation, including moderation, I think is a really good one.
Dude, so, I love that, Phil. Okay, so let's get into. You've created a personality test, and you sent me this personality test, and I took it, and it was easy. It was a Google form. Took it online. Boom. I was in a pretty solid state. I don't know the results. I'm going to get the results live right now. Going to get an assessment. And so maybe you just want to give us a little bit about what your test is, how you developed it, and then let's dissect my dome, dude.
Yes, for sure, dude. So my idea behind this assessment, it's called the all age personality assessment, is no frills whatsoever, just like the raw science of personality, right? And what science has pretty much shown us is that there's 5 personality traits. So like some famous psychologists like Gordon Allport was kind of like the big psychologist behind personality. He was a Harvard guy. And he kind of like showed that if we ask people like every single question about themselves, then these questions or like these items tend to be clustered into 5 areas. And science has kind of proven this, like using like factor analysis and stuff. So the 5, personality traits that science shows are, the acronym is OCEAN. So openness to experience, extroversion, agreeableness. Am I spelling this right? Openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And I can explain a little bit about what each of those means, but they're very close to what you would think they mean.
Yeah.
Openness to experience is like this love of like creativity and trying new things.
Am I going to Burning Man? That's openness.
Yeah, for sure. Trying psychoactive substances that are safe, or just like having this idea of like, I'm ready to go on an adventure.
Yep.
Conscientiousness is like almost like your goody two shoes brown nosing class that's like does everything right, always has their homework ready, always has their chores done. Extroversion, just being super social. Agreeableness is like being really nice and understanding, like a lot of counselors and stuff test high in agreeableness.
Mm-hmm.
And then neuroticism is just like this, like it's related a little bit to like being moody and kind of gloomy, but then also just being really anxious as well. So yeah, you took this assessment, and I have scores where you test compared to the like 1,250 other people that have taken this assessment.
Sure.
So I feel like I have like enough data now to where we can actually like do some interpretations.
Nice.
So are you ready? Like for
Let's
for your
go.
results?
I'm ready, dude. I'm buckled up. I'm ready to go, dude. I'm feeling vulnerable. This is a podcast, dude. It's the most vulnerable medium there is out there, dude. Let's go.
Yeah. So, and there's 2 ways we can like interpret it. So one is the normative, which is like compared to others, and then others the ipsative, which is like the traits in compared to yourself. So like you could say like, which do you think you tested highest in compared to yourself? But anyway, I'll go through the normative results. So on openness, your Z-score, which is basically like how many standard deviations from the mean you are, was in the high average range at the 90th percentile.
What up,
so
dude? Let's go. Road trips. Let's go.
So that falls like it almost falls into the very high range, which is at the 92nd percentile.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Conscientiousness, this was my biggest surprise considering like, what I know of you from just going deep and stuff. Your conscientiousness was in the average range, but it was only at the 27th percentile. So this was the one that was like your weakest in terms of the other traits of yourself.
I'm no brown nose, dude.
I'm guessing that you don't always have everything like perfectly organized and everything.
That is correct.
Which surprised me considering
correct.
like, your love of credenzas and everything. I was thinking like this would be higher. I thought you were like a very neat and tidy person, but maybe not.
I've got my better half, my dank GF. She keeps it in line. She keeps it in line and on time. I have her back on those things. So yeah,
That's
Phil,
neat.
I think you're spot on here thus far.
Yeah. All right. So your highest trait, which I don't think is any surprise, was extroversion. You're almost 2 standard deviations above. You're right on the border between the very high range and the extremely high range.
Yeah.
At the 97th percentile.
Yeah, I got to talk. I got to hang with my boys. I got to get it out. I got to cut it up. I got to flesh it out. Let's go.
Yeah. I think you're the perfect media. I think you're going to be just wildly successful if you keep doing this podcast because you're in the right spot.
Oh, thank you, my friend.
Yeah. And then agreeableness, solidly in the average range at the 67th percentile. So above average.
I disagree.
And then neuroticism, pretty
dude.
much right on that average at the 53rd percentile. So no major. And actually, I switched. So the antonym of neuroticism is emotional stability. So just to keep it so that like more is always, I don't know. Anyway, you're 53rd percentile in terms of emotional stability. So a little more emotional stable than neurotic.
Nice. That's a nice, healthy little balance. I love that, dude. Dude, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Phil, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this assessment. Thank you for spreading your freaking dank knowledge, dude, on this
Yeah, of
quest of
course.
Stoke. I think, would you say I have a personality that's more inclined to being Stoke, and maybe my extrovertness bums me out when I'm seeing others not stoked. I'm like, dude, I think it maybe sets me up for a little bit of empathy, and I want to find more Stoke and figure out maybe it's not about where it started. Maybe it's about where it's going. And that's the most important
Yeah,
thing.
I agree, man. I think like, we're all on the journey together, and like at the end of the day, it all comes down to like perspective taking and just being empathetic and thinking like what are others thinking in this situation. So yeah, for sure, man.
Real quick before you take off, Phil, can you just do a quick assessment on Aaron and figure out like what's wrong with him, why he doesn't like In and Out, and like what could possibly be going on in his head to think Five Guys is better?
Dude, I am so curious, but you also have to remember I've only had In and Out once in my entire life. So
You're
part
done.
of me like needs to do more science of like, is In and Out truly living up to the hype? And if it does, then I think it's more interesting in terms of like, why doesn't Aaron see it? But I don't want to like throw Aaron under the bus, because from the one time I had it, thought it was pretty good, but I don't know if it's like the best.
Whoa.
Now,
I just need more. I need to do more science, more data collection.
Aaron, what do you got?
is
what do you gotta say?
that just your assessment of the burgers or of the fries?
So Aaron, let me ask you, like, what don't you like specifically about In and Out? Do you think it's just overhyped, or do you like not like certain things?
The fries are trash.
Fries are trash. Okay.
The
And
fries are-
burgers you're okay with?
Burgers are okay.
I'm talking
And
just
what is
burger.
about the fries? Like, what don't you like about the fries? Are they mushy?
They're unsalted. They're soggy.
They
It's
use
just tasteless.
They use real potatoes, which is tight.
So does Five Guys.
So I'm gonna say Aaron has a high, like, openness to experiences as well, and like he needs like those flavors. He can't have blandness in his
Yes.
life. Like he needs adventure, and so I think Aaron's probably just offended by the fact that like they're doing so little maybe in the fry realm. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a salty dog. I need my salt.
I love that, dude. Dude, this has been freaking amazing. Phil, thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing your knowledge, which I think is one of the best ways to spread Stoke, and opening up your fellow man's dome in a nice, healthy manner. So hopefully those listening learned some quite a bit. And Phil, is there anywhere that you put anything out into the world that anybody listening can check out, or what do you have next going on before you take off?
I would just say the two things, for any stokers that are kind of trying to figure out like what they want to do with their lives. Because I started out in like engineering in college, and I realized pretty quick like I'm not an engineer. But my two like recommendations if you're trying to figure things out, like one, maybe go abroad. So I taught English for like a year in Taiwan, and that just kind of like gave me a super great perspective in terms of like, and just like a break to say, what do I actually want to do? But then also like what I'm doing now is school psychology. I love my job, and like we need good school psychologists out there, especially guys. No, but honestly, anybody good, And so if you've never heard of school psychology, but you took like an intro to psych class, consider school psych, because it's like super interesting field, and we could really use you out there. So that's all I got to say.
I love that, dude. Legend, bro. Phil Draz, thank you so much, dude. Keep being a freaking chiller, dude. Keep spreading the Stoke, my dude. Thank you so much for joining, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a dream come true. So rock on, man.
My pleasure.
Stoke Nation.
We'll have to have you back, dude. Talk a little bit more, dude. Cut it up, flesh it out, dude.
Yeah, Aaron, take care, man.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
Late. Nice, dude. Phil Draz joining, dude. Spreading some freaking knowledge. I mean, I think I learned, we learned a little bit about psychology and a little bit about the study of happiness, and from a dude who's on the path himself. And I think that's freaking tight. And I think, maybe this is a first step, a big first step. And like I mentioned earlier, my quest for finding out the origins of Stoke. I mean, it sounds like with Phil's personality assessment, maybe it's, somewhere in our DNA. And I think that's what I was latching onto. I think there is stoke genes within all of us. Some of us maybe have more than others. And, you know, of course, it's circumstantial as well, like he mentioned with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so I think the journey will continue. I think we learned quite a bit today. I'm fired up. I'm pumped up. I'm feeling good. I'll probably, you know, this is a sort of a type of episode where after it, I can just sort of call my dad and be like, what up? What'd you do today? Oh, interesting, dude. Well, guess what I did, dude? Freaking expanded my dome. Very nice. By the way, how's it going, dude? I got to come out and visit pretty soon. So I think it's definitely one of those type of episodes. So I'm feeling fired up on that. Hopefully you guys are feeling fired up. Please write in with any questions you have regarding this ep for myself. And if you have any for Phil, dude, write them in. I can forward them to him and fire it up. So striderwilsonshreds@gmail.com, and freaking have a dank day and just freaking stay stoked, dude. All right, dude, freaking late.